It is time to wrap up the year. Can you believe that? 2024 is almost over. This is your monthly wrap up. It's your yearly wrap up. I'm your host, Craig Hemke, and since it's Christmas time, we figured we'd hear from Santa Claus himself from the Great White North. Eric, you got this beard going, brother. How you doing?
Yeah,
Nice to see you.
I did it for you and the listeners. You don't want to look a little Santa Claus like.
Right,
I wish I wish I could have been a little more Santa Claus like last year.
right,
That was a
right.
tough thing.
Well, and old guy retirees like you can make a few extra bucks by putting on that red jacket and going down to the mall, you know.
Yeah,
So if you need a little extra
yeah,
income,
yeah.
you always have
Always
that.
need extra income. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I should mention. It's been a great year to own the metals. I mean, it's just been staggeringly productive, right?
Right.
But it's been an awful year to own the securities, which I'm sure we can talk to later. But gold and silver have been great. Of course, we benefited massively by the central bank buying, and I think by government irresponsibility, which I think is becoming more and more of a theme here. You see what happened in our country recently. Where the finance minister resigns and the currency's getting beat up here. Our deficit was supposed to be 40 billion. It's announced as 62 billion. Just a slight miss, right? Oh my God. And that is going on throughout the world, whether it's France or England or Germany. Not so much Germany; they don't have a big deficit, but Brazil's now got under the crossfire of the currency going down, and of course, pretty well all currencies have gone down versus the U.S. dollar. So anybody living in any country outside of the U.S. would benefit materially by owning gold.
Right. Well, I just put my glasses on so I can remind myself of the number. 2 months into the U.S. fiscal year, the U.S. has already run a $624 billion deficit in 2 months, 367 billion in October, and I'm sorry, November alone.
Yeah.
It's just the madness.
Yeah. We're on that, I should say. I would say one of the big worries that the market might have here is if these 10-year yields keep going up, and we've gone up quite a lot here in the last little while. And of course, we're up something like 80 beeps from the day they announced the first cut. And we're almost back to the highs for the year. And I was sitting here thinking, well, geez, and some people are even talking about 5 and 6% now. Some people in the financial community, they can sort of see it coming as, you got to fund this stuff. I'm just thinking, if it went up 1%, that's 360 billion more deficit.
Right.
1%.
1%.
We already got a deficit that's out of sight. And that's when you kind of hit the Minsky moment, right? Where your debt is all of the problem and you can't pay the interest. And I would say we got to be very close to that in the US. Not that the stock market's not carrying, but the bond market's carrying. Sure, it's carrying.
Eric, that's a little bit of the paradox of this year, in that on the surface, if we go back to January and I talk about the dollar index has gone from 100 to 107 over the course of the year, and rates have gone up and have gone up significantly since September. On the surface, you'd look at that and go, it had to be a bad year for gold. And if we're talking about rates going even higher, you'd think, oh boy, it's going to be a bad year. But it's been the opposite of that. What has been the key driving factor this year?
Yeah. Well, I think it's just a physical market. You get these central banks. I go back 25 years in this thing. And back in the olden days, the central banks used to sell probably 800 tons of gold. Now they're buying 800 tons, not 800. That's wrong. Sorry. Let's say, what do we produce? Yeah, 2,500. Yeah, okay, it could be 800. They used to sell that much. Now they buy that much.
Yeah.
How do you fit that in? That's probably a change of like 20% in the market here. So that is by far the biggest thing. And I think there's also a move afoot by big investors, both institutional and individuals, high net worth individuals, where they are in fact buying gold. They see where it could work. Who's the fellow from that used to work with Soros, Druckenmiller? Mm-hmm. He came out and grabbed it. I think the Bond King came out in favor of gold, recommended gold. There's all sorts of people that are now including gold in the discussion. And of course, that's a big factor because gold, I mean, the weighting of gold in the whole financial arena is of like 0.5% here. So if anybody thought for a second that it had a position in a portfolio, oh my God, the amount of buying that would take place would be dramatic. And then we might be seeing that, Craig, in the sense that, we had a rather interesting week this last week, where back on Wednesday of last week, it was becoming apparent to people that there was some congestion in the physical supply of metal on the COMEX in both silver and gold. And then we had the tamp down on Thursday and Friday. But gold was trading at 27.60 at the time. It was almost at a record high, for God's sake. I'm checking the March contract here. And all of a sudden they got bombed. But when I've actually spent some time looking back at the last week, and I noticed, and I know this is an area that you're way up to speed on, probably more than me, but the amount of gold that was settled in the week by exchange for physical was 35,000 contracts settled on the EFPs. And we had 5.6 thousand contracts, 5,600 contracts settled by actual deliveries. So we had contracts representing 40,000 contracts in open interest that was settled in some physical kind of way. The open interest only went down 28,000 contracts. And I find it interesting when I look now at both in the case of silver and gold, and you look and see how you shrink the open interest. And when you have to shrink the open interest just by delivering, in other words, you've become a physical exchange now. None of these contracts are going to disappear unless somebody delivers something. We're not going to get away with the paper stuff anymore, I don't think.
Yeah.
So I think it's quite noteworthy what happened in gold and silver. Silver last, month to date, has had deliveries of 45 million ounces. It's 47 million ounces. And they still have an open interest of 1.5 million ounces in the month. So we're actually going to touch about 50 million ounces of deliveries on the COMEX. Well, 50 million times 12 months is 600 million ounces. We only mine 800 million ounces. We can't be sending the production to the COMEX, okay?
Right.
So I think there's lots of signs of physical tightness. We see it in the cost to borrow SLD shares, GLD shares, GDX shares. We see it in the decline of the number of shares that's available for borrow is going down sharply. So there's lots of signs that the tightness that a guy like me would have imagined for the last 20 years might be manifesting itself right before our eyes here. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Yeah. You and everybody watching. It was odd. It was odd because by the middle of last week, and while that December contract is in delivery, all of a sudden there was a spread from spot to that contract of like $12. That should not happen. There should be an immediate arbitrage of some kind. Keep that from happening. And then you get this action Thursday and Friday that drop price below the 50-day and spread evaporate. Anyway, we don't need to get into the weeds with that.
Well,
you're right, though. It has to be.
I'll tell you one other thing, Craig, that I've been watching is every day the demands for deliveries rises. In other words,
yeah,
they might take delivery of 100, but they say, well, what's the open interest? Well, the open interest went up 200, which means somebody bought 300, the net new claim. And those claims, as I say, was like 5,600 contracts, new contracts just in the last week. So somebody's in there buying it who needs immediate delivery.
Yeah.
And of course, there's discussions that's, somebody out there short big time. We've had certain bank names thrown around. It's interesting. Well, we throw these names around, and I don't think it is. It's certainly not JP Morgan, but I'm doing a bit of a roundabout here, but I've been spending a lot of time this week doing research on the JFK assassination and sort of the confessions of some people who were involved. And they say they were involved, and they fired the shot from the grassy knoll. And there's a couple of other guys, mafia guys, all coordinated by the CIA, by the way. And one of the thoughts I had out of that, oh my God, well, they finally fess up, right? They finally tell the story. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go back and listen to Chris Marcus's interview of Bart. I've heard it before, okay?
Yeah.
But I thought I'd go back and listen to it again and see exactly what he said. And of course, I think for Bart, I believe was a bit of a bedside confession as well, because he died very, very shortly after that. And I think he probably knew he had a terminal illness. One of the other guys who was commenting about the JFK thing, he gave a big, long interview. He died 9 days later.
Yeah.
They kind of know they're going, so let's get that there, okay? And the words that resonated, I actually wrote it down here. Bart Chilton says, a lot of evidence would lead to manipulation. Now, he said they didn't have enough to charge him, but there's no doubt in his mind that a lot of the evidence would lead to manipulation. And had they had the proper rule set, which they didn't have then we could have charged, in that case, J.P. Morgan, I believe, with manipulation, okay? And we've all, talked about this over and over and over again. We've all believed it's manipulation. We see the fines for manipulation. But to hear, Bart Chilton say, yeah, it went on for a long time. And by the way, I think that examination they had went from like 2008 to 2013 or something.
Yep.
Long time.
Yes.
So it was interesting. And the one thing that makes me, and I also, of course, I read about conspiracies all the time, and I almost feel like I'm in them all the time. But one guy was saying, well, pretty well all the conspiracies come true now. Like it's everything. And I don't know what the conspiracy is with the drones, by the way, okay? They're flying around New Jersey or whatever. All sorts of people have all kinds of conjecture, but it's, yet again, bizarre, right? Why wouldn't we have all these drones flying all over the place?
Well, even with all that in place, in the management of price, we have had a great year. Really the best year in gold that we've had, since 2020, and beyond that, 2010. Silver, though, is an interesting animal, Eric. I want to get your thoughts on this. There's only two commodities that have yet to exceed their all-time highs. Everything. I mean, you go down the board, they all have except silver and sugar. So,
oh my God, yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So as we roll into the new year, I want to get your thoughts on this. I've been asking everybody on my site to keep an eye on about 30.85 for the spot price of silver, because there have been years, obviously, where silver's gone, up toward 50.
Yeah.
But it is the highest annual close.
Annual close, yeah.
It's 30.85 from back on Christmas Eve of 2010. Do you think, we talk about big money, and bigger institutions and family offices and hedge funds and the like, would anybody even find that chart and look at it and go, whoa, look at this, a breakout on the annual chart? Is that important or not?
Well, I think they say if it was above that, you'd have this huge cup and handle thing, right? Which I guess it's going to go to the moon again. Which I believe should happen. In fact, when I look back at silver, and when I think that silver is produced, I think it's probably less than 10 to 1 produced, less than 10 ounces of silver for every ounce of gold. But the price is 80 to 1. And it just makes no sense. It goes back to your comment. Like, how can these two products be trading at the kind of values they're trading at with all the information we know about them? And I fall back on that. Used to trade 15 to 1 when it was a currency. It's produced 10 to 1. I can't imagine it's going to stay at 80 to 1 here. And I honestly believe, here's the whole conspiracy thing, that they use silver to control gold. It's easier to knock down and make it quite violent, by the way, because it takes no money, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about the major banks just doing the bidding of whatever the Federal Reserve or the Treasury. And that's, in fact, what's been going on for these 45 years that I've been involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
That they have kept pressure on it. And the only question is, does it end? Do we have enough hard information on silver to end it? Of course, you would know all the data as well as I do. I mean, we've had a shortfall of about 200 million ounces for the last 4 years.
Right.
We'll be going into the 5th year of at least 200 million ounces. The progress on silver has been incredible with the solar thing. And of course, the solid state battery that Samsung has brought out, which has a kilogram of silver in it. Oh my God, and I think it makes a lot of sense that will revitalize the EV industry. That needs to be revitalized, by the way, because, the only lasting 600 kilometers or 400 miles, and the time it takes to charge, and the fact that there aren't enough charging places and all that stuff and the cost of repairing it, and all the other issues to do with EVs. You need something that goes longer. The solid state battery only takes 9 minutes to charge. I mean, it's like having a cup of coffee. Yeah. So I think that could be very, very important here for silver going forward. And, that shortfall could go from 200 million to 300 to 400. I don't know where they're going to keep getting the silver from. And as we see, I actually think that a lot of the silver that was delivered into both gold and silver were from the ETFs, the Western ETFs, where the participants, the agents, the authorized agents were buying these ETFs and redeeming the silver. So it looks like nobody cares about silver. Well, you know what? Somebody did care about silver. They worked beautifully, right? Oh, look, nobody wants these ETFs. And of course, they're the guys buying them anyway. Mm-hmm. So I think we're set up for pretty good times here.
Andrew Maguire's thought that for, I think, as long as I've known him, that those ETFs were set up just as a flywheel. That's why they're custodied in London, so that anytime there's a shortage and a need of immediate metal, they can just basket some shares together, short them, and boom, sucks them right out of there.
It's funny that you'd mentioned Andrew Maguire, who I've spoken to many times. But Bart Chilton mentioned Andrew Maguire.
Yeah.
Because Andrew Maguire was talking to Bart Chilton all the time. Well, look, here's when they're going to hit it. Sure enough, 70% of the time, they did exactly what Andrew Maguire said was going to happen. Okay. Now, it's interesting. He also mentioned Ted Butler. When I've been a subscriber to Ted Butler forever, he's unfortunately passed. Yeah. And it just seems awful to me that, it's probably just about to happen. And Ted, of course, is writing about it for 25 friggin' years. It's like you and I popping off right now. Right. And all of a sudden, it goes crazy.
I can tell you, if silver ever does take off, I might have a heart attack. Right. Well, and again, so it may not get anybody's attention if we, just say by chance, silver does finish the year at 31 or 32 on the spot price with that higher price. But what would it mean to you? I mean, do you look at those kind of charts and would it be like, okay, here it comes?
I can tell you this. If it closed at, above 30, I'm going to be very, very, very impressed. And here's why. We got guys out there that are short 500 million ounces of silver. Yeah. They're losing money.
Yeah.
You can only delay the non-recording of this stuff so long, although I gather banks might be allowed to not record losses these days for whatever reason. Okay.
Yeah, right.
But you can rest assured that both in gold and silver, the losses are staggering. I mean, they got to be like $20 billion that they've lost this year, being short those two metals. We're up $800 in gold here on, what are they short? They're short about $70 billion worth or so.
Yeah.
30%. There's your first 20 million.
Yeah. So let me ask you.
The point I was trying to make is year end is very worrisome to a guy who's long gold and silver.
Yeah.
Because of the underlying desire for those guys to knock the price down for year end. Right. So it would be even more impressive if we could ever mount a rally here just before year end. It would be most impressive.
Let me ask you about that in a second. I want back up though to this notion that the banks, a lot of folks out there that understand this works, are like, oh boy, they're going to come smash price, or the markets are going to collapse, and gold's going back under 2,000 and that sort of thing. It would seem that as long as that central bank bid for physical continues, almost puts a floor under how far it can be driven lower. It would seem
Yeah.
that way. Does it seem that way to you?
Yeah. Well, you know what? Whenever I see a smash, I always think of India.
Yeah.
They're the real buyers of silver and gold, right? In particular,
Yep.
they've gone crazy on silver this year. Absolutely crazy.
Yes, they have.
And as you pointed out in our earlier discussion, here's theoretically China bought 55 tons of gold in October.
Yeah.
Yeah, a month.
Yeah.
We only mine 70 tons a month. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. So is that like
So,
a floor in a way? Could you, I mean, if the banks, yeah, they want to wash all the specs out and cover all their shorts and get price back down, but if they risk kind of a physical rush, with physicals on sale, because they got to match those orders, paper price
yeah.
versus physical price, does that put a floor under things? Do you buy the dip?
And well, and the thing I find interesting about China and India, it's not always for the central bank either, right? They're not buying silver for the
Yeah.
central bank. And I think in February, they bought 77 million ounces in 1 month in February. It's India. And this last month, they bought, I think it was 22 million ounces, which is still a fair chunk of change. I mean, that would imply about 250 million ounces in an annual mine supply of 800.
Right. Right. Right.
And it's not the central bank buying it, it's somebody buying it who's going to be producing solar or solid state batteries or any kind of other electrical thing. So China and India are really the industrial centers, right? Where they make things. So that's where the silver is likely to go. And I think these guys they're opportunists when it comes to price, for sure. The Indians in particular. So I was very happy to see them buying a lot in November, and hopefully with the price even a little bit lower here, they're probably in buying right now.
Yeah. There's my other question about a year-end rally. Here we are, it's the middle of December. A lot of the mining shares dropping, as they almost always do, Eric, on what seems to be tax loss selling. And I
Yeah.
just noticed yesterday, darn Newmont, it's all the way back down to $39 a share, which is where it was in early April.
Right.
Uh, do you think there is a little Santa Claus rally, as sometimes happens in the mining sector here in the last?
Well, after you get by the last day, you have to take your loss for tax purposes. They normally rally. Okay. In
Mhm.
fact, they rallied before that
Yeah, usually.
because the selling's pretty well done. Eh? How many guys are going to wait till the last friggin' minute
Right.
to sell something? So we can't be far from that. We don't have many trading sessions left in the year. And normally it's just around this time of year as they start to rally. So, and I think they probably will. It's been a horrible year for the stocks, even though the fundamentals have been quite impressive. Fundamentals of the price of the products they sell.
Right.
So, but it's been horrible to be an investor. I mean, I see it all the time. Stocks that get a nice rally because gold's going up, and then even while it's still up, then they just start hammering it. And one of the things I really worry about, speaking of conspiracies, is I really believe that the naked shorting has had a hell of a negative impact up here in Canada.
For sure.
That just they haven't really formulated rules to kind of deal with it, and you keep reading about it all the time. Guys that are cases being filed, particularly in New York City. In fact, there's one filed against two big Canadian banks. I think it's for $700 million. For some biotech guy up here says, well, these guys were naked shorting my stock. I know nothing about the case, but would I understand that happening? Yes. And I think what they pick on companies where you got to spend a lot of money and a lot of time before your product's available for you to make revenue. And what are the two things that do that? Biotechnology and mining. They just take so long before you can ever get a penny. And they just know if they hammer it down, you're going to be doing an issue. We'll just buy it down here because we're going to take it down there. Mm-hmm. So it's a big worry of mine.
For sure. And I know you worked hard in the Save Canadian Mining.
Yeah.
And and that's something we're all grateful for the work that you and everybody at that organization are doing. Um, I'll get back to mining we'll talk more about shares here in a
Yeah.
little bit. Um, let's regarding the metal. I mean, again, because like you said, we should all be feeling pretty good about ourselves, right? Gold's up 25% year to date, silver's up 30, but it's those darn mining shares that leaves everybody. What um for gold? As we're recording this, we're a couple hours away from the December FOMC meeting and Jerry having his press conference and all that kind of stuff. Um, would you expect? What are you hoping for? What do you think gold's going to do and silver's going to do next year?
Well, I think if you use the physical part, which we spent a lot of time talking
Mhm.
about, whether it's the COMEX or the LBMA, I know that a fellow named David Jensen does a lot of work on the LBMA and
Yeah,
how much the inventories have gone down. Lots of people, of course, look at COMEX, as both you and I do. But I would say that all the evidence, you get away from the need of banks to have a price at a certain level. You can get away from that. In other words, I would say this: just getting into 2025 is going to take the lid off gold because there's no reason for them to hold it yet. They have no. They'll be finished their quarter, finish their year. It runs hard when these banks get out of the way. You can see it. So I'm pretty sure. If you and I were talking January 31st, I'll bet you gold will be up a couple of $100 from where we end the year.
seasonally one of the best months of the year anyway. Late December and then into I think January, seasonally the second best month of the year on average.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's lots of reasons for it. You can see what the banks do, okay? I mean, it's just incredible. And I would say the tamp down last week, it was getting out of control. The physical claims on the commodity exchange were getting so high,
Mm-hmm.
they had to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe that it's all part and parcel of, well, how the hell do we keep rates down if it looks like inflation's going crazy, and it looks like inflation's going crazy if gold goes crazy and silver goes
Yeah.
crazy? So
Yeah.
we can't have that.
If anybody watching us, just pull up a daily chart of the front month February gold right now and put the 50-day moving average on it. You'll see this is the third time that price has been busted back below that 50-day moving average with force. It gets the machines,
Yeah.
the hedge funds that are run by machine to just start dumping that technical
Yeah.
indicator, and then problem solved, at least temporarily. You're right. We'll see what happens as we get into. I don't know what Powell, as we record this, I don't know what he'll say. How do you feel about the U.S. economy? Is it going to be weak enough or will it be weakening in 2025 that there will be more rate cuts than what's going to be intimated here later today?
Well, the big plus for the US economy has been all the money that people are making in the stock market. I mean, we're
Yeah,
talking huge, huge, huge amounts of money.
yeah. Crypto
And so
too.
now you have the bifurcation where the guys in the market are making fortunes. And of course, the guys down there are getting clubbed like a baby seal. Um, but I think that the underlying economy is not nearly as strong as the data would suggest. I've never believed the Bureau of Labor Statistics numbers, that we have all
Yeah.
these jobs created all the time. I just don't believe it. And of course, the household survey says we've lost 1 million jobs this year. And the other guy says, well, we're up 2 million jobs. Well, who am I to believe here? And yet I think we'll start to see the claims move up here. There'll be more job losses. Maybe we'll find out, once we get through a year, and there's typically a lot of layoffs because guys realize, oh, we're not making it. Heaven forbid that rates go higher. I mean, rates going higher is a killer for small business. I mean, it's just the worst thing. They've had no break on anything, right? Now we got some of these huge cost increases like insurance. Oh my God, it's the increases in the cost of insurance for everybody, whether it's health, car, home, crazy.
Yeah.
So, and those are big bills people got to pay.
Right. Precisely.
And then even the PPI and CPI are starting to blow back up here, and it's the same thing's happening in Europe, where the CPI seems to be moving back up, and looks like we're not going down anymore. Let's put it that way. We'll be going up here.
And Eric, where does the money come from? I guess that in the end, $624 billion in deficit. And just the first 2 months alone, there's this perception since Trump was elected that all of a sudden everything's going to get, better because the Doge committee and all this kind of stuff. Um, is that rooted in reality, or is reality more, hey, this is going to get, going to continue to grow exponentially?
Well, I think he could very well have a tough time. I don't know that. I mean, his margins in Congress and the Senate are so small that if you
Yeah.
get one or two guys tipped the other way for some reason, um, as I said, if for some reason, well, who's paying me off here? It's an
Yeah.
awful thing to
Right.
say,
Right.
but you know what happens, right?
Right.
You think of those lobbies, the military industrial complex lobby, the pharma lobby, the healthcare lobby. Oh my God, I hate to think of it. And we see the amounts they spend.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's getting it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, speaking of that, I find it quite funny and I guess in a way ironic that President Biden has pardoned at least 10 individuals who scammed the public in the financial arena. And some of them as much as a billion and whatever. And all I'm thinking, okay, let me figure this. Why would he do that? Well, they probably still have some money left. Maybe he can get some of it.
Why wouldn't you think that?
You're not gonna let the guy go to jail who was smoking a dope 15 years ago.
Right.
He's broke. Those other guys, yeah, we'll let those guys out.
It truly is remarkable. And again, hey, look, I'm an American. I'd love to see them, try to get things under control and fix it. I just don't think it's fixable.
Yeah,
Um, but we'll see.
yeah. Hey, by
All
the
right.
way, Greg, I forgot to mention, when you talk about gold going up 40% or 25%, hey, if you're a Canadian, it went up more than that,
Dang straight.
like a lot more.
No
Because
doubt.
exchange
Right.
rate.
Exactly. So it's doing what you want it to do.
Yeah,
I mean,
and most people in the world, right, ex-US, they've all done well by that.
right.
Yeah,
I'm away from my office as we're recording this, but I like to show people, this, it's a piggy bank, Eric. It's the shape of a London bar, but it's a piggy
all right.
bank.
Yeah,
Okay. Um, and if you go back to when Nixon closed the gold window,
right.
you could have bought one of those London bars, 400 ounces, for $14,000.
Yeah,
Today, it's $1.2 million.
yeah.
The bar hasn't changed.
I
Bar's
got
still the
a
same.
I got a funny story for you. I have a lot of these. Okay, that's a silver coin.
Yeah.
And if you're in Canada and you want to buy it from Sprott, money probably costs you in Canadian dollars $50.
Yeah.
I give these out quite regularly. Again, I give them to somebody and says, this is worth 50, but it only cost me 5 because I bought it 25 years ago
25 years
for
ago. There you
nothing.
go. Yeah. Right.
Think of that. Think of that gain over time.
Well,
Wow.
so it's doing what it's supposed to do. The metal is, particularly gold.
Yeah.
But like I said, the shares have just been
Yeah.
it's so anyway, let's before we get to some individual names, I know we need to discuss
Yeah.
an other 37,000-foot view of the sector. It seems, at least to me, that one, nobody cares,
No.
right? I mean,
No.
there's some of these cryptocurrencies you've never even heard of that have a larger market cap than the GDX. So there's that. There's also, as we record this, what the value sector of the U.S. stock market has declined like 12 days in a row, and it seems like the mining shares are now value instead of growth. I mean, they're not growth.
Yeah.
What changes it, Eric? How do we get the perception to change and that people actually want to own these things as a long-term
Yeah.
investment?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that I follow Michael Oliver very closely. The wonderful
Yeah,
momentum guy. And
great
he
guy.
basically says, if the market starts to break down, the stock market starts to break down.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where's everyone going to go? I mean, I don't see them going to bonds. I think if the market breaks down, the crypto will break down too.
Yeah.
That there won't be many choices of where to go, and gold and silver will be a primary one. It's already shown it's outperformed most things this year. Okay. So the computers know that gold and silver are doing well, even though no one ever recommends it. So I think the market breaking down would help. And I think the big fear in the market today should be, well, is AI economic you know, as these guys build out their $100 billion facilities that are going to suck up more energy than you can imagine and more water than you can imagine, and they say it costs 10 times more to search on ChatGPT than on Google, 10 times more in cost because of all the energy needed to answer a stupid little question, right? Like, what's the favorite name of a child in India, right? And you got this computer that takes up, you know, 70, this whole building, you know, you know, it's Imran, whatever.
Right.
Like, and I do, and so, for example, I watch NVIDIA, and NVIDIA is in a correction now.
Yeah.
Okay, and Michael would suggest, I don't know whether you use the weekly close or not. We're not closed the week, but at the price it's trading at yesterday, he would have said it's broken down. Okay. Now, if the whole thing starts falling apart because nobody's figured out how to make money from it, even though it's a wonderful thing because it does things faster, but how do you make money? Where are we making the money here? I got to be able to charge somebody. And maybe those people I want to charge can't afford to pay for it, but we know half the population can't, and maybe half the businesses can't. So we'll see how that plays out. But I wouldn't be surprised that NVIDIA and the whole AI thing comes under pressure. And, you know, this would be like me saying, you know, I don't think the Mag 7 is going to do as well as saying this back in June. I don't think the Mag 7 is going to do as well as the market back in June. Well, it hasn't. Funny thing, hey? All of it was Mag 7. Now it's AI. And each of these things, of course, detracts a lot of money from the whole market. Well, if it finally rolls over and they don't want to own NVIDIA and they don't want to own Microsoft, they don't want to own Amazon, okay, maybe we'll have a chance.
Is that what it's going to take, you think? Because
I
again,
think so.
like, I saw a thing last week. There was one day last week where that Mag 7 or Super 8 or whatever the heck they call it these days, the market cap of just those 8 stocks went up over $400 billion in a day.
Ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I can tell you that.
The PDX market cap is 14 billion.
I know. It's crazy. Yeah.
So
we'll have our
okay, and then to the smaller companies, you know, like you said, I mean, they kind of burn through a lot of capital as they try to drill all their holes and prove up what they have and that kind of stuff. I remember, you know, we talked 5-6 years ago, you know, when gold was $1,500 or $1,600. It's like, well, boy, $2,500 gold, a lot of those things become economical.
Right.
And well, here we are.
Yeah.
And yet the exploration stocks are still down.
And by the way, Craig, they are all economical.
Yeah. So what's the deal?
Okay. Well, the problem is you got to get there, right? In other words, you got to get your resource. You got to do your PEA. You got to do this. You got to raise the money to finally get there. And any time you say to someone, "Oh, well, that's going to take 4 years to get there." Okay, excuse me. I'm going to go. I'll go buy some NVIDIA calls. One day calls.
Right. Buy some Fort coin.
I'm going to find out how much I make in a day. I can't be waiting 4 years for this.
Right.
Because you really need someone else to come along and support the thesis that it's of value. Okay. So we need the companies to come in and buy some of these junior guys. And we had one where somebody bought, was it O3 Mining here in Canada? It was Agnico that bought it, which is good because they're in the exploration development time of the cycle. But obviously somebody in the business realized, okay, this is good value here. And when I look at stocks that I own where, I can buy an ounce of gold in the ground for $10 Canadian.
Yeah.
10. That's got to be ridiculous, man. And I'm imagining it's going to go to 100 US. So I could make 15 times on my money if it just got back to normal. To normal.
Right.
Wow.
So you see this, I see this. What gets other people to see it? Is it even higher gold price? Is it, like you said, getting out of growth, this idea that these growth stocks are dead for a while, we got to invest someplace? I mean, what's going to finally...
Well, I think the fact, as I say, the computers see it. Okay, they don't see the stocks going up, but they see the metals going up.
Mm-hmm.
You're a big fund manager and you're asked to compute. Well, what went up yesterday? Well, gold went up yesterday. Well, what's the best performing asset? Gold's the best performing. Well, we don't own any. Well, maybe we should own some,
right.
Move around. And then, you know that as gold goes up, sooner or later, the underlying stocks are going to go up. When you do the contrast, like I think the UE index is like half of its high, and the high was when gold was 2,000. It's 2,600 today.
Yeah.
Like it's just impossible to imagine that that could happen. So I think our day comes, and when it comes, I think it'll be fast, very fast, and particularly the market starts getting jittery.
Let's talk about some of the individual names. I'll start you with one because I know on my side, a lot of folks have been like, what is going on in Newfoundland?
Yeah.
What's going
Well,
on in Newfoundland?
well, first of all, I put a lot of credence in the fact that these naked shorters and guys around them, you see the closes every day. It's down 2 or 3 cents right in the last minute of the trading. I think they've had a big hand in this. Doesn't matter what you announce. It really doesn't matter. If they want to knock it down, they'll knock it down. Right now, like I said, it wasn't that good. But I mean, the announcements they've made of the sampling they've done on surface, I mean, it just blows your mind to think how good it has been. But the market doesn't do it. Now, a fellow named Paul Hewitt is now the chairman as of yesterday. Okay, yesterday. Paul ran Karora. I was a major shareholders of Karora. I would call myself an associate. Oh, I had Paul working for me on a ore body that I own 40% of in Idaho. And so I'm very happy that he's gone in as chairman of the company. I think he will single-handedly bring it to more prominence. In other words, get out there and start talking about this thing. I think one of the weaknesses of the former chairman was he didn't like to present anywhere. Well, you don't present. What the hell do you think is going to happen to your stock? Yeah. Particularly in this environment, right, where everybody can trounce on you. So I think they've got a wonderful deposit there, and I'm hoping between Paul Hewitt being chairman, for us trying to do something about the naked shorting, which we work on all the time, that we will end the blight for Newfound Gold. So that would be my summation.
Did change of government up there help at all?
Yes.
Okay. Let's just leave it at that. Let's hope so. It couldn't hurt, I guess.
I'm just thinking it can't be any worse.
Yeah. All right. Another one that comes to my mind, at least, I remember the last time we spoke, we talked about free gold.
Yeah. Okay.
And it bound and it rallied, and now, of course,
just fades, right? Like you're only as good as your last announcement, and then if you don't have another one where people can have conviction, of course, everyone loses conviction so fast. Unfortunately, look at the stock on it. Oh my God! Anyway, I'm a huge shareholder of Free Gold. I think I might own 30% or 27%. That was the example I gave for a stock that's probably trading for less than $10 an ounce now. Yeah. Their last 43-101, they said they had 22 million ounces of resources, but they said that by saying, well, we're only using 72% recovery on the gold we know we have, but it's likely to be 90. Well, at 90, they got 30 million ounces, okay? And I think they're going to go from 30 to 40 when they come out with their next one, and I think they'll go from 30 to 60 based on, okay, just keep moving along. We see the stuff in surface. We got to drill it. Deep drilling takes time and money. But we'll have a huge deposit there. So, I mean, I still own every share that I ever bought, and I like it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to mention 2 new names to these podcasts.
Yeah, lay it on us.
One is it's called Cerro de Pasco. They have a mine. I think it's Peru. Eric lives in Peru. I think it's Peru. It's not a mine. It's an old tailings operation. It was a mine that was producing probably 400 years ago, and they got these huge amounts of tailings there that they've now been given permission that they can treat them. And they have something like 50 grams of silver. They have some gold. They have about 1.5% zinc, about maybe 0.7 lead, something like that. They got some copper. They got all these metals in there. And of course, there's no cost of mining, right? This stuff's already.
Yeah. Where is it?
I think it's in Peru. Is it in Peru?
Peru? Peru. What was the name again?
Cerro de Pasco. CDPR is a symbol in Toronto, Cerro
Okay.
de Pasco.
Interesting.
I'm going to mention another one, which is a very odd story. It's called Aftermath Silver. And when I owned it quite a while ago when I was buying some of these junior silver stocks, and they said they had resources of 140 million ounces of silver. Not bad for what was probably a 20 million market cap company at the time. It's now, I think, about 140 million Canadian, so call it 100 US. But when I was looking at it recently, they had a presentation that I'm reading, and they said, and the value of our ore is as follows, comes from the following metals. 25, I'm rounding, 25% silver, 45% manganese, and 25% copper. And I thought, hold it now. If you're telling me you got 140 million ounces of resources of silver and it's only 25% of the ore, that would mean that 100% of the ore would be worth over 500 million ounces of silver. Now you can't actually do it that way when manganese is the major element. You can't put it as silver equivalents. Okay, but I'm just doing that for math purposes. Okay, and the funny part was when they valued the manganese monosulfate, they were valuing it at $500 a ton. But the fact is that it trades around 2,000 a ton. So the 40-odd% that was in manganese monosulfate was substantially more than that because the price is quadruple that. So I just think that, and manganese monosulfate, here's where it's used in electric cars.
Hey, how about that?
How about solid state cars?
Yeah.
Solid state, yeah. So, and it's essential, and 98% of it's produced by the Chinese. And this is in Peru. And it's going to get developed. They probably get processed maybe in the States or Canada. But I bet you if they said, well, we'll turn it into manganese monosulfate in the States, they might get a hell of a handout from the Department of Energy or somebody, because they want to bring that production into the United States now.
Yeah.
Critical production, like 98.5% comes from China. Ooh.
You've lamented over the years, we've been doing this for so long now, about how hard it is to find a good silver deposit and a primary silver producer. And, and with the fundamentals the way they are and the potential use in EVs, we all sit back. I wonder why, a company a user of silver doesn't just buy a mine. You got any silver companies that you're keeping an eye on?
Well, I've always favored for that Discovery Silver.
Yeah.
Because they have, I don't know what the hell the equivalent is, something like 500 million ounces equivalent or something of silver. But it's in Mexico and it's open pit.
Yeah.
Open pit in Mexico. And of course, with the former premier or president, he was against open pit mining. Now, maybe they'll open it up a little and allow some open pit mining, which then I think would bring a lot of interest back to Discovery. I could mention Chesapeake, which has a lot of silver, again, low grade. I think it's Chile, but big. I think they've probably said they got 50 million ounces of gold and whatever, 500 million ounces of silver, something like that. Low grade, open pit, huge cost, of course, pushing up to billions. So that's always that always works against these guys. They got market caps of 150 million. They got to raise $1 billion to get a mine started. But I think that money is going to become way more available now when people just look at the economics of these things. And the economics are so good: $2,600 gold and $30 silver. There's lots of projects where their NAV is probably 5 and 10 times what they're trading at.
You think, Eric? I'm just sitting here thinking while you're talking. I mean, what are the chances we can get like private equity involved?
Oh yeah, no, I think it's going to come in. That's what I think is going to come in. Private equity coming. That's all they care about. They care about the economic equation.
Yeah, right.
Right. So we're going to have this many tons. We're going to produce it at this price. We're going to sell it for this. We're probably trading at less than 1 times cash flow. Okay, I'm in.
Yeah,
they'll come in.
That seem like it's such a perfect trade for them. We talk about the hedge funds and the retail and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, I think they would come in. particularly, like, I mean, you can imagine if gold and silver started breaking out here a little. I mean, particularly silver. I mean, my God, the money you could make on
Eric,
these.
I've even thought like a Newmont, which is and Barrick, which are so inefficient with their costs constantly rising. Isn't that the same for a private equity or a BlackRock or whatever? They'd look at any other public or private company and go, oh, look, we could trim, go up in there with a chainsaw and trim
Yeah,
all the fat.
yeah,
The
yeah.
same thing.
Well, of course, I never favor the big guys, right? And
Well, yeah, but
I
still.
would say of those two companies, I almost blame them for killing the sector.
Yes.
They've been such underperformers. I can hardly
Yes.
begin to tell you. And I think
Yes.
back in 2000, Barrick was producing 8 million ounces, and here we are in 2024, and they produced 4 million ounces
Yeah.
after a
Stock
couple of
price was the same.
acquisitions. It's
Right.
just been awful.
Right.
And I even see Newmont selling all sorts of what they call marginal assets. And I think, I think they're crazy to do that because they obviously don't believe gold's going to 4,000 or 5,000 or whatever, right? Who the hell would sell these things
Right.
with a positive outlook for gold? And by the way, you can tell the president of Newmont, there's something a lot more important than him. The price of gold, my friend.
Yes. Yes. Well, and again, that's what I mean. Why you would think, a private equity company that just looks at the bottom line like that would go, hey,
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a hell of an opportunity here.
well, that would, and
I go for that same thing when I'm buying equity. Okay. I'm buying the lowest credit on there when you're buying equity, right? But I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, when this thing goes into production, the money they're going to throw off will just be incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So fine, I wait. I'm a very, very patient investor. Rarely sell, only sell when there's a takeover for one of the companies I own. And,
right.
it's been a bit of a tough road here, but it's also working in some ways. I mean, when I look at Free Gold Ventures, I mean, when I first bought it was 6 cents. Okay. And now it's whatever, 70 cents. It's not bad.
Yeah. I've explained that to people too. You taught me a long time ago, what most people, you buy a basket, you buy a whole bunch, hoping that some of them, handful
work. Yeah, big time.
Yeah. But then, what the mistake I've always made, and probably most everybody watching us, you take the same approach. I mean, saying me, I take the same approach, and then one goes up and doubles. Like, oh, I'll take half my money out. No, it's just where your approach has always been. That one's working. I'm going to put more money in.
Yeah, right. Well, if you have all the details, you know why it's going up. Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Yeah, gives you more comfort.
All right. Well, we've been at this for a while. We should probably begin to wrap up. I know you got to get back to the, make sure the elves are banging out the toys, and you got to make sure the sleigh's ready to roll. What else is on your mind? Anything else we haven't covered in this year-end wrap up?
Well, of course, as I said, my overriding concern now is, the sort of the state of, I hate to say it, but the state of rot. And can we get rid of all this stuff? And in fact, I was thinking to myself, maybe the reason that the October, November budget deficit is so high, they know they've lost the election. We better spend it now.
Yeah.
And we better spend it with our Democratic friends.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my God.
Doesn't necessarily leave me optimistic for next year in terms of fixing the corruption and getting the spending corralled. And I would imagine if that continues, we're going to have another good year.
Well, let me go back to what I think there's such polarity down there, right? I mean, oh my God, the left and the right just can't get along. They hate each other, which is a big, big problem. I don't know how that's going to resolve itself. So, but for our industry, I think we will prosper and we'll show way better if people just don't keep throwing money at stocks just for buying 1 day options and, playing the same 7 stocks or 8 stocks or whatever it is. And finding out that, in fact, I saw something where some guy was showing the quarterly sales of Apple and they've been flat for like 9 quarters. Well, why are we paying 38 times earnings here? Come on.
Right.
Anyway, we'll see.
Well, thank you for all you do. And it has been a heck of a year. And We'll see where we go next. This kind of concludes our calendar here at Sprott Money for the year.
Hey, it's all good for Sprott Money. They're selling the coins.
Right. That's exactly right. And
Those
hey,
are going up in value.
The holiday gift guide still on the homepage at sprottmoney.com. It's not too late to do some shopping. Again, sprottmoney.com is the company that provides all this information. So make sure you thank them. Get on the list because we'll have more content coming in January. You don't want to miss any of it. So again, go to sprottmoney.com, check out the holiday gift guide, buy some sound money. Anything over $500, they'll ship it to you for free and fully insured. How can you beat that? The number 888-861-0775 if you want to talk to somebody in person. But for now, it's time to call it a year, Eric. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. I have one last question for you. Is this the year that the Bills are finally going to win the Super Bowl?
I heard my daughters were telling me that they saw a survey where the Bills were now America's team.
Red, white, and blue.
That would be fun. And I'll go to the damn game too if they get in it. That's been a long, hard battle too, right? The Bills. Oh my God.
We're in New Orleans this year, I think, is the Super Bowl.
In New Orleans. That's a nice place to go to. Yes, sir.
You just jump in the car and drive down.
Maybe I'll get to meet you there.
Hey, you know what? You got a deal. Yeah. But even though if the Bills are in it, that means the Chiefs won't be in it. But, we might as well let somebody else win for once. That would only be sporting.
We'll see. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed for Gold and the Bills.
Hey, you know what? I like that idea.
Yeah.
My friend, thank you. Again, Merry Christmas to you, your family. Merry Christmas, everybody that's been watching. It has been an interesting year. It's going to be an interesting year next. So keep an eye on this channel, and we'll certainly have more content coming in January. Eric, thank you.
Okay, Craig. It's always fun, and all the best to you, too.
Thank you. And from all of us, Sprott Money, sprottmoney.com. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, season's greetings, happy holidays, all that stuff. And we'll see you again in January.